Okay, so let's talk about what is infinite limits. So infinite limit is what happened when x approach something, the result is going to be infinite. Let's go back and look at the first part here. This first part here, which is we can talk about that.
Do you like maximize?
This one?
No, because it's still unrecorded.
Oh, my bad. Sorry about it. Better. Okay, so at first we talk about, we already gone through all the things on the left hand side. The only last part is the infinite limit, which is number over zero. If you have number over zero, what do you do, right? And what is the one side limits? And so those are things that a lot of people get confused. But they actually are one of the easiest one because they require least amount of work, and that's why I say, you guys don't have to show up today. I just make a small video. It's going to be very quick. So this is the part. It's going to be something that we're going to focus. Obviously, we already done with this. We just need to done this part. Remember, you should always plug in a value. Yesterday's homework, I think question 6 or 7, there was a radical. And people are so hurried to do conjugate. You don't need to conjugate something. If you plug in, you get a result. Yesterday, those, I think question 6. Yeah, you just had to plug in and that's it. 0, done. Move on to the next question. You don't have to do conjugate to plug in. No, not everything has to be here because you are actually under this track. You got a number, you're done. Whether 0 or 5, that doesn't much work. Absolute value, we did it yesterday, so only down to this part. Okay, so what is infinite limits? If you go in, says, well, what is limits? As x approach to 1 from the left over 1 over x minus 1. So remember, the first thing we do on limit is plug in. But if you plug in, you will get a number over 0. So number over 0, that means that lead to one side limit, which is like this case, one side limit. And can you guys think of what's a 1 over x minus 1 graph look like? If you cannot think of it, it looks like a reciprocal graph. What is a reciprocal graph?
It's like
Inside curve.
But, yeah.
There's
it,
two
like,
asymptotes.
doesn't actually approach the line,
Yeah.
but it like just like that, just
Then
like
there's
that.
one in the third quadrant.
Yeah.
Right? So what you do is, how do I know are they rich from the one from the left? So it's going this way, right? And according to the graph that you can see, that's going to a negative infinity. Now, how do you know if you are just doing algebraically, which is you giving this function and you don't remember what a graph look like? So what you're going to do is going to plug in some value that's very close to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in, if I have 1 over 0, I just plug in a number that's really close. So 1 minus, and I'm just going to be 0.9 minus 1. So that's going to be 1 over negative 0.1, right? It's negative value, so it's going to be negative infinity. Why? Think about it. 1 over 0.9 minus 1 is going to be 1 over negative 0.1. Now, if I do 0.99, that's going to be, so this roughly equal to negative 10. If I do 0.99, it's going to lead to negative 100. Again, to negative 1,000 if I get smaller and smaller. It's more closer I get to here, the more negative I goes. So I just had to plug in the value and determine that sign. If the sign is negative, it's going to negative infinity. That's it. Super easy. Anybody can do this. So what's the requirement to do one side limit? It has to be a number over 0. Okay. can you figure out what happened with this? Approach to 2 from the positive. 1 over 2 minus, I mean, not 2, 4 minus x squared. Remember, just plug in a value. How close to that value? 0.1 away would be good. What'd you guys get? What happens if I plug in 2? Number over 0, right? Number over 0, then you're going to do a one-side limit.
You 1 over 1.
You don't want to do 1.9, you want to do 2 to the plus side. So some value that's greater than 2. 2.1, good. So be 1 over 4 minus 2.1 to the square. Well, 2.1 squared is much greater than 4, right? So it would be negative, does that make sense? And that's also equal to negative infinity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. You can try a couple. Limit x approach to. Now I'm gonna do 1 in this. I'm gonna do let's say 3 in this case, but 1 over x minus 3. Now if I say it's 3, now this one's gonna be number over 0. However, I did not give you either side. I did not give you 3 from the left side or 3 from the positive side. That means you had to do 2 separate sides. If I do 2 separate sides in order to conclude this answer, what would you get for this? And what would you get for this? And to conclude the answer, what do you think 3 from the left is? Negative infinity is good. How about 3 from the right?
Just be infinity.
It'll be positive infinity. So the result of this actually is going to be does not exist. Because if you're looking from the left and you're looking from the right, they're not conclusive. Right. They not come out the same number.
So it does not exist when it's like you get both.
Not necessary. No, just pay attention to what happened to this. What happened if you limit x approach to 3 on 1 over x minus 3 to the square? Now, if you approach a single number, that means you have to approach it from a separate side. Remember, we give you 3 possibilities. One possibility is infinity, negative infinity, or does not exist. In this case, it does not exist. But if you approach it from the left, it's negative infinity. If you approach it to the right, it's positive infinity. What do you guys think this one is?
Wait. It's positive infinity?
Good. Why?
Because when I did 3.1 and 2.9, so when you did the 3.1, that was positive infinity, obviously, but then 2.9, it was negative, but then I squared it, which made it positive. So
There you
it's
go.
positive.
Because that square affect everything, right? Now this time it does not exist because this one's going to be 1 over positive, so it's going to be positive infinity. And limit x approach 3 from the right, it's going to be 3.1 minus 3 squared. That's still going to be positive. It's positive infinity. Therefore, this is a positive infinity. And that's it. This is easy lesson for today. That's it. It's not much more.
Nice.
What other class you have? Don't know. Just this class?
Oh, wait, what?
What other class you have?
For me, after my bio, and then I have AP Lit, and then I have orchestra.
I will come for those two classes.
What are you guys doing about it?
In bio, we're doing the macromolecules.
It's Davis, right?
Mm-hmm.